Well, hello, everybody, and welcome again to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou. And for a change, I think I'm quickly going to do a little bit of housekeeping before we introduce ourselves. We do take questions. Jen, I don't know if you noticed if we had any. We didn't, I guess, this time.
I think we did, actually.
Oh, I didn't see it, so I'll look it up. But if you have any questions, then please send them to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com and you might be featured on air. And we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdlymagical. So that's kind of how you can get in touch with us and how you can support our podcast. So first of all then, Jen, do you want to introduce yourself, and maybe let's mix it up a bit and you introduce yourself and show us your card first of all.
You're in a mix-up mood.
I am.
I'm Jen Duchenne of jenduchenne.com, and I am the creator of the Illuminating Journey cards and an Akashic healer, reader, teacher, and numerologist. And I help my clients to find their soul's choice, to free them from any of the restrictions that are keeping them tied up.
And you have a card.
Now I'm going to show the card. All right. Well, I picked a card. We pick a card every month. Twice a month. So this is the card that came up, the 23. And those of you who can't see it, the 23 Soul Portal from the Illuminating Journey cards I created. There's a woman in the middle. There's the pyramids in the back with a hawk on top of the one pyramid. The woman is wearing a kind of flame kind of dress. There is a pheasant and a sphinx. And in the background, mountains. And there's the Venus path. And to me, this card speaks of this journey we're on. It's getting curious, asking questions. The Sphinx is related to the riddle, right? Asking the riddle. What's the journey? I feel like the way the woman stands there, she's waiting to commit to a journey, knowing that the journey is perhaps not an easy journey, but one that is a soul journey. So it feels very much connected to the soul, to the commitment of, I want to say taking the flame. I don't know what that means, but kind of this idea of being invigorated by your own desire, what you believe in. So it's the kind of following your path. I also think it's interesting because it's a 23, which we've talked about before, and the 23 is a very powerful number. It's about trusting your own intuition. And now because I look at the card, I kind of feel like it looks like almost like a sand lion coming alive, which is very interesting. And of course, yes, go ahead.
Of course, it's a desert card and very fiery, and the full moon we're going to be speaking about is a fiery full moon. And 23 is the degree that Eris is at in Aries, which is another fiery card and relates to my card. You'll see when I bring my card up. So,
right. And 23 is also related to, it's called the Royal Star of the Lion card. So I think it's interesting that the lions are showing up as well, because this is the Leo.
The Leo full moon. Yeah, exactly. So. Well, I am Louise Eddington. I am a soul astrologer, and I guide people to freedom and to create the life that they desire. And the card I pulled is the Princess of Wands, so another fiery card. And this
colors. Sorry.
But this is this mastery of spontaneous expression and liberation. So it's very Leo in that respect. And if you see, she's actually got the tiger by the tail and kind of like floating up to it, towards it. But I mentioned that Aries, where Eris is related to this card too. She actually has the horns of Aries on her head in the card. So it's altogether a very fiery card, and so is Jen's, and it's a very fiery full moon because the full moon is in Leo, and a full moon is an opposition. So we've got the moon in the sign of Leo and the sun in the opposite sign of Aquarius, which is air, which fans the flames of the fire. So it's a very creative and expressive full moon. So to quickly just mention the details of the full moon, it's on February the 9th at 7:33 a.m. Universal Time, which is London time, and that is a Sunday, and it's at 20 degrees and 0 minutes of Leo and Aquarius. And the last full moon was at the exact degree as well, at 20 degrees. So we often find these repeating patterns when we're going through major times of change. This full moon is not making any aspects to any of the main planets, but it is forming a T-square to Vesta over in Taurus. We'll talk about that. It's also aspecting Juno in Libra by a trine aspect to the sun and a sextile aspect to the moon. Other things of note in the full moon chart are that Pallas Athena is on the south node in Capricorn, and Ceres is exactly square to, Ceres will be in Aquarius. Right now, as we record, she's at the last degree of Capricorn, and she's going to be square to Aquarius modern ruler, Uranus in Taurus. And we also have, as we record this, Venus is conjunct Neptune in Pisces, and Lilith is conjunct Chiron in Aries. And by the full moon, they will have swapped around. So Lilith will be conjunct Neptune in Pisces, and Venus will be conjunct Chiron in Aries. I think that's everything. Oh, Saturn is going to be on the full moon, is at the degree that he will station retrograde at in May. Was that right? Yeah.
Yes, 25 degrees.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he's pretty much slowing down already. So we've got lots of things to talk about around that. So and we do have a question. Jen was right. We'll get to that after the end of this. And that's also got a lot to do with the 2s and the 20s and things. So but let's look at the numbers for this full moon, Jen.
Yes, I was just going to make the note that all planets are going forward until the 17th, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Until Mercury turns retrograde.
Right. So a rare opportunity to be in movement.
Mm.
So what's interesting about the numbers? First of all, we are in 2020, right? So there's a lot of 2s there. February is a 2 month. And of course, here we have the second 20-degree moon in a row, full moon. So there's the 2020, January, February 2020. That's so interesting. Now, I've probably mentioned this before, but the 20 is the number of what they call the awakening. It's an opportunity to move from one plane or understanding to another, so to up level. And I think that speaks very much to the cards we both pulled, which is about this idea that you can fire yourself up. And the way these numbers are speaking to me and this chart here is this idea that we are firing up a part of ourselves that has been hidden, that has been cloaked or not being allowed to come forward. So it's not our normal egoic type of energy, but this is a much more universal energy of being fired up with our truth being brought into the now. What's so interesting about it? Okay, so here we have the 20s. We're having this on the 9th day. So the 9 is about endings, and not only about endings, ending of an old cycle, an old way of being. It's an ending of our ego in some way, because 9 relates to the ego. The other part that it relates to, which is really important, is this idea of coming into the fullness of our passion, feeling our feelings. 9 is the number of the highest level of emotions. So the 3, 6, and 9, those are the emotional numbers. And having the 9, that's the highest one, where we gain the wisdom of our feelings, if you will. So by moving or burning off the fuel of our ego, of needing to be important in the world, or to look perfect in the world, or people not to judge us, and to move beyond that into that higher plane of expression, self-expression, which is expressing ourselves to the world as some being or person that has the right to express ourselves and not have to hide behind something. So here we have that 2, that 20, that raising ourselves above the energy of what we have been, coming into a new level of being. With the 9, letting go, and this idea of being in balance, because 2 is about being in balance. It's about speaking our truth in a way, diplomatically, without worrying about offending others. And we can be kind, we can be aware, and we can speak our truth. So it's something we can see that's happening in the world outside of us, where people are standing up for themselves, standing up for what they believe in. It's about being in integrity, in balance, but not giving in, like not letting somebody else decide for us, but speaking our truth and just going, this is what it is. And we don't have to yell or push, but we can be very connected to that truth.
Yeah, and of course, the astrology always kind of ties into it, but putting kind of it into my own words astrologically, it is a Leo full moon, and so a full moon means that the light of the moon is at its strongest, it's full, so to speak. So when we see it, we're seeing all of the moon's light, even though it's a receptive body that is reflecting the sun's light. We're always pulled to the moon on a full moon is the point of that. And a Leo full moon is very much led by the heart, led by joy, and led by love, basically. And at the opposite side, we have the sun in Aquarius, and we're being, Aquarius, well, the sun is our ego, and Aquarius has this tendency, it's a very complex sign, but the words that come to me on this full moon are kind of this feeling of, I'm I'm special, but I'm different and all that. But we're asking where we're more in common, I think, in this full moon than where we're apart. We're being asked to let go of this egoic idea that we are really different in some way. Because yes, we're all unique, but I think sometimes when there's too much focus on the Aquarius, we set ourselves apart too much, and that means we lose our connection with others. And with Leo being, as I said, it rules the heart. It's about joy. It's about love. It's about creative self-expression in its highest form. Yes, its lowest form can be the ego as well, because it's ruled by the sun. But we're being asked to let go of that and step into this heart-led space, I think, on this full moon. And I do think this square to Vesta in Taurus is kind of reflective of that, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. It's very much about kind of earthly love. It's about feeling the connection with the earth and with our core values. So more and more we're being asked to step into this space of love, coming forward and stepping out of these old restrictions and things that we've been bound by for so long, that we're being released from, or being given the opportunity to release from, over and over again in every lunation at the moment. So
Right. And it's very interesting. Of course, Leo is the heart energy, and Kur, or the lion heart, we talked about the number 23 relates to the lion, the heart of the lion. The Leo, of course, ruled by the sun, shining our light. I think this is one of the things to recognize, is when you shine your light as a unique being, you have no competition, because Uranus is about connection and it's about your community. And when we recognize the individuality of each other, there is nothing to separate or dissociate us from. And that's the key here. And I think that's what Lou was talking about, in the sense of we want to celebrate our uniqueness and, and perform, in a sense, right? We want to shine the light and just show who we are and be full of that energy, and recognize that we can do that and be in community, that we can all shine our light, and together we're illuminating our experience, we're illuminating our world. Because the Aquarian energy, and this is true of the 9s and 2s, it's the same kind of energy, right? Is this idea of separation, thinking that we don't belong. Or with the 9, the 9 idea is to be connected to all community in its highest form. It's universal love. It's understanding we're all connected. So we can choose to be separate and say, people don't understand me, they don't like me, I don't fit in. That's all ego, right? Because here we are being given an opportunity basically to clean the slate. This is what we're going through right now with all of this stuff. We're clearing the slate, we're letting go of what's been, and we're choosing what we're going to take forward with us. And we're going to have the results of, or the reckoning of the things that we have done. So it's not a punishment. It's just a look, an accounting. I did this. This is what happened. This is what I believed. Now I have a different opportunity to move forward. Also, what's interesting is we're in February, which is I said it's a 2-month, which it is, but it's also a 6 universal month, right? Because we're in a 4-year. So having the 2 and 4 and the 6 and the 9, this is really interesting, because we have both the manifesting numbers 2 and 4, which is how we make things real. We attend to details, and the 6 and the 9, which is about love, loving our family, connecting, loving what we're creating, coming from a place of love. And then the 9, the higher octave of love and wisdom. And, I think that our greatest wisdom comes from how we express love, because the Aquarian age and the Aquarian energy we have here is about inventiveness, coming up with new ideas. But of course, that's the head, the higher head, but we need the heart, right? The heart is where we have to make decisions through the heart in order to prevent ourselves from being too calculating. Or what's that thing like, we often see that idea that we are soulless in some way in that Aquarian thing, unless we understand the connection, the brotherhood, and why we need to get together.
Yeah, because the highest form of Aquarian expression is real brotherhood, but as I said, as we're demonstrating, it's a very complex sign. And to bring in the Aquarian thing again, we've got, I mentioned it at the start, we've got Ceres, as we record, about to leave Capricorn and move into Aquarius, joining the sun. And Ceres will be in exact square to the ruler of Aquarius, also in Taurus, which is where the moon is squaring Vesta in Taurus. Now, Ceres is associated with, the natural cycles of the earth, the natural cycles of life, of, grief, forgiveness, birth, and having, the family, letting go. There's so many. She's a very fascinating energy. And she has just come, Ceres has just come, she's following the sun from this mass conjunction we had in Capricorn, where all the rules and institutions that we've been living under for centuries are kind of collapsing, or our attachment to the outside rules is collapsing. But Ceres moving into Aquarius is going to kind of be a real shift, a real freedom of breaking patterns. Aquarius is a very pattern breaking sign as well, because it can see the new patterns. There's a lot of new patterning in this full moon, I think, and the fact that Ceres will be squaring the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus, in Taurus. There's a lot of association there with how we associate with the natural world, with nature, with eating foods in season, for example, things like that. I think we're being asked more and more to kind of return to being in flow with the natural world, rather than the attachment to these man-made rules that we've been living under for centuries, as I said. And I kind of think that square is really going to push us to do that more and more. You know, we're beginning to realize that buying, avocados grown in, I don't know, South America or somewhere, wherever, it's probably not that great for the environment. So people are starting to realize, to shop locally, farmers markets, all that kind of stuff. That's just one example. I think we're going to be seeing the new patterns, seeing the way forward. Both Aquarius and Uranus are very futuristic energies. We can see where we need to go. I think that square is really important in this full moon as well. Before I just let Jen dive in again, I'm glad Jen mentioned that planets are all direct until February the 17th, when Mercury turns retrograde, because I'm offering a free Mercury retrograde class, and I will put the link in the podcast. I'm not going to go on about it. I just wanted to mention it to everybody. So come join me in the free class. But Jen, what's your take on that the 3 degrees that Ceres and Uranus are squaring at?
Well, I was just reflecting on the fact that I had mentioned the 6 and 9, and then here we have Ceres and Uranus at the 3 degree. And the 3 degree is about the love of self or self-expression. So it's really important to understand that, right? That in this equation, as these things break down, that our experience will probably be more challenging than we expect, because we are breaking away from ego. And when we're breaking away from what is rigid, or the systems and patterns that have kept us what we call safe, or, if I follow the rules, I'll be safe. Breaking away to kind of connect to the deeper love of self, the deeper love of earth, all of this energy of love that's been activated 369 for this full moon and this month, is this idea of being willing to let this happen, because that 3 is forcing us to look at the internal connection, our light within, that is the love of the divine, the love of the earth, and not just this idea of buying local or being more tribal in how we consume, kind of sharing, which is very much that Aquarian thing. But it's also about love. Like when we care about one another and we care about our things, we treat them differently, and we treat ourselves differently. Like when we love ourselves and we treat ourselves with compassion, then we can do that for other people. So it spreads out when we are receiving the love from the universe. For me, what I feel like about all of this Ceres and Uranus and even the Vesta, I mentioned, this energy is something that is it's moving us, like shaking us up, like in shaking up our complacency of, oh, this is how it goes, and it's going to be, this is the reckoning time. So it's the earth speaking, the universe speaking, and kind of, it's like the image I'm seeing, the the Akashic Master is always showing me images when we do these things. But it's kind of that picture of like a man's voice, even though I know it's not God per se, is not a man. But I see this kind of picture of this kind of guy with his like voice shouting, like it's like a river coming, like a waterfall coming out of this face. Could be a woman too, just like coming out like this, like the stirring of the emotions. And that's true for all of us. Like our emotions that have been stuck and compacted in our bodies are all coming forward. We're rising in revolution. The people against the top up, whatever, people that have been in control. Everyone's rising up with their voices, and the universe and the earth is rising up too, to kind of go, I've been pressed down. I mean, the story of Ceres, like she has this issue with Pluto, right? And with the earth, because he kidnapped her daughter, right? So there's all of that goes with it. It's the energy of understanding what is withheld when we do what we do because we don't care about the what we're using, how we're using our resources, how we're abusing it. So we are going to have to look at all of those things that come up from that eruption. Like you and I have talked about this, even in terms of when things erupt. And I'm sure there's probably going to be some physical eruption, more than what we're already seeing, right? There'll be more. What happens when the earth breaks open? Disease and floods and all of the things that come with that is possible. And of course, we can't go into fear around it. It's just recognizing these are cycles that are happening. So what do we need to do to kind of bring all of that stuff back in alignment?
For sure. Now, there's a couple of other things I wanted to look at on the call. Was that again, as we record, what date are we? January the 29th. That's where we are. Venus is just past a conjunction with Neptune in Pisces, and Black Moon Lilith is conjunct Chiron in Aries. And by the time of the full moon on February the 9th, the two will have swapped places, basically. Now, my take on that is that Black Moon Lilith often represents a wild part of ourselves, but it's also to do with shame, or where we've been shamed, where we feel shame for who we are, in like no matter what caused it, whether it was, family words and actions, or whether it was the community we were brought up in. We've all got something where, we've been shamed for something we say, how we act, how we walk, how we talk, whatever. We've all got some area of shame. And Lilith next to Chiron right now is kind of bringing all that to the surface. And by the full moon, and Venus and Neptune has been releasing some of our old values that we live by and asking us to step into our new values. When they reverse, Lilith is on Neptune, and that's saying release this shame, because, it's not necessarily true. It's not who you are. Or if it is who you are, then why is it shameful? Just because maybe somebody said or laughed at you or said, you do this wrong or something. That doesn't mean it's anything to be shamed about. So this is a big release of shame. And then Venus on Chiron is saying kind of, here's the key to healing. He's moved forward with these strong core values and this strong love of the self in Aries, because we cannot love others fully and lead with that heart love that we're talking about unless we love ourselves. So I find it very interesting that those two are kind of swapping places right now and leading up to this full moon. So that's
yes. Fascinating. And I think too, even as we talked about the 9s, the 6, the 3, the expression of self, and what you're talking about, the idea of shame, that's all ego that makes us want to appear a certain way into the world. And we have to remember, this is what this whole Saturn Pluto thing is about. And the Saturn and Jupiter experience is about, that's happening as they track each other through this change, is rethinking how we are standing in the world. What do we think makes us important, or that whole idea of who we are to the world outside. And part of this is going, oh, it's about control. People at the top, who are like, the leaders, are saying that, if I do this, if I look this way, there's something wrong with me. And, we've agreed with them up till now. And now we're going, no, I don't agree with that. That's not true, right? And so this is that same thing, is releasing the shame, looking at and going, those things, we don't really have the luxury of having shame right now, because we have to get out there and speak and stand up and use our voices to create this thing we're desiring to bring into the world. So if we focused on, oh, I can't go out and speak because people will look at me because I do this, or I say this, or act like that, then it's going to stop us from, it's going to stop our liberation. And this is all about liberation, the understanding that if we're made by Source and we're these souls, then how can some other human tell us who we should be, right? That just doesn't make any sense, right? We must connect to Source. We must look at nature. Nature does not reject anything, really, right?
And there's
as long as you, sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's a lot of this outsider energy in this chart, right, about where we felt like outsiders. Eris was an outsider, and she's still in square to Pluto, and Pluto is, astrologically, to my mind, is really kind of excavating that outsider status and saying, you don't have to be an outsider just because, you've had these messages and your ego's going, oh, well, I talk like I talk like this, so I don't do a video, or I walk like a duck, so I don't do this, or whatever. And, I understand these fears, and these messages that we get are so ingrained. And so, yes, it is ego, but it's not easy to let go of. I think the universe is helping us to let go of these things right now, or giving us the opportunities to say, okay, whatever that means for you, whether it means you're going to get up and speak at a political rally or whatever, it's just, you're being given the opportunity to let go of that feeling of, I can't do it because of whatever. So, yeah.
Right. It makes me think of, there's a, what do they call that? Like Chiron, right? Has his wife is, what do they call that?
Chariklo.
Yes, Chariklo, who was at somewhere around there when, I think it was at 22 degrees when Pluto and Saturn met. And they say that she has, well, it makes sense, behind this man who was this great healer and was injured, right? Somebody was taking care of him, right? Because he was that outsider, as we've talked about, the neither fish nor fowl, or good red meat,
or even a centaur like the rest of the centaurs.
Right.
Very different.
Yes, so I've heard people talking about, and I actually find this really fascinating because I didn't realize that she has a 60-year cycle. So I just had my Chariklo return.
Me too. Or I'm having mine.
Right. 22. It's 63 years or something. Oh. Anyway. So sorry, I said 60, but 63. So 22 degrees. So Capricorn. So the interesting part about this is they say that she was this amazingly, her energy is this amazing, loving energy that is like, this is energy we've been denied for thousands of years. The true compassionate love of like mother love. Like most of us haven't experienced that in this lifetime or in many lifetimes. So it's something that helps us understand we can forgive ourselves and let go of this energy of being confined or controlled by someone else. Because I was just thinking, as Lou was talking, it just like made me laugh, because it's laughter and humor that makes us realize or accept our humanness. We laugh about it, it's funny, because it's funny when we do things. Instead of being embarrassed, we can just laugh. Like other people are laughing, let's just laugh with them. Let's just join it in. If it's something that really feels bad, then we need to tell them, like, that really hurt my feelings, right? But it's like hiding and putting these cloaks isn't going to help us move through this time. You know, it's so interesting to see all these female energies connecting with these old style male energies and all coming out and working in pairs, because again we've got to look at the twos. This is all about the polarity or finding that point of connection. Like we can be apart, but what is it that's going to bring us together? And I think, Lou, you were talking about in terms of the Aquarian thing is, yes, we have all these inventions, these ideas about how we want to go forward. We need to bring our hearts in it to connect it. So it's not just cold and calculating. It's connected. We're doing things that all of us agree with, or most of us agree with, right? That's the democracy. Aquarius is about democracy, true democracy. Not the idea that some people are more important than others, but that we're all important. We're all special. Yes, so when we're all special, then, you know, no one is more special than the other. And that's the inclusion, and that's us. We need to be the ones to find the way to bring the connections together, to build the bridges, right? That's the Chiron energy. That's 2 Chirons at 2. So it's really fascinating, again, what's happening here with how these numbers are lining up next to one another.
One other thing in the chart is Pallas Athena, my favorite asteroid. She's the visionary kind of strategist, and she is just past a conjunction with the South Node, the releasing the past end of the nodal axis. And she's kind of following all these other energies through Capricorn. Mars is still yet to come through. But, you know, to my mind, she's bringing us the opportunity to see a roadmap forward under all this collapse. Because, you know, the Tower card is very much what's happening now. Institutions are being shown to be completely corrupt and things are falling apart. And but behind that, we're always being given this opportunity to see how we can move forward, and things are starting to change underneath it, even if you look for it. You know, I look even at just, for example, the impeachment trial at the moment that I've not been watching, to be honest, because who has time to get through all that? But
yeah,
you know,
especially when it's
when it's what? Sorry. Yeah.
Some of it is fake. I mean, when you're hearing
fake, yeah, and it's all just arguing over whose version of the law is right of the Constitution. So it's not, anyway. We're not hearing anything evidence, but it's, to me, that's emblematic of the fact it's showing up that our systems are breaking down. They no longer work. We no longer have these checks and balances and separation of powers and all that kind of stuff in the United States. This is not about any one person. It's not about this president. It's showing up how the system was built to fail in a way. It kept going for quite some time, quite well, but now it's failing, and we need a new way as we need into a new age. But we're seeing underneath, you know, the risings of people doing things more in community, doing things together. And I'm not talking socialism either. I'm talking about something very different. You can feel this groundswell coming underneath. And Pallas Athena following through, to my mind, is giving us that opportunity to see a new way of doing things. So
Right. She's a
Yeah.
strategist, right? So you have that energy, and she's at 8 degrees. Now, I was just looking, there's a couple of energies at 8 degrees. We have
Oh,
Vesta at
Mercury
17.
yeah.
Mercury, that's right. And we have Neptune at 18, at 17, that's also 8. We also have, I don't know what the other one is. I can never remember the face. It's like a mask at 8. Oh, no, I'm wrong. That's
Oh,
28. So it doesn't.
okay.
Right. So forget that one. But very interesting because, of course, we have 2 and 4 that are active, and 8 is the high level manifesting. It's about leadership, making it real, looking at things not as obstacles, but using strategy. How do I get past through this? How do I stop seeing this as an obstacle? How do I use this as an opportunity to bring my leadership and to bring people together in order to make things real in a different way? So it's also a very Aquarian kind of energy there. So I find that fascinating that she's at that 8, which is the strategy number, right? Mercury at 8 as well. This looking at the bigger picture, kind of widening the mind, opening up the mind, letting the higher mind get in touch with the higher heart, right? So we're really looking at all of those things. And I don't know if you mentioned the fact that because the moon is separate from everything else, really.
No,
It's right. So it's this energy of kind of looking at the picture from the idea of the heart, from the emoting what is really the sense, the truth of who you are. This light, shining your light out into the world and cooperating with what's happening out there instead of going and cooperating with the things that are working. Like, let's admit that this other stuff isn't working, and we need our voices and our love and our passion and our expression and our togetherness to break through, because individually we may not have a lot of power, but when we get together, then things start moving, people start listening, they start paying attention. Like, I find it hilarious. I know it's sad too and painful, but it's also hilarious to see all these people on the top trying to scramble and control things, and the things keep bubbling.
I find it quite hilarious too. Even though I know a lot of people, I acknowledge a lot of people are in fear and things and there is a lot of chaos. I'm not going to pretend the chaos is going away. It's not going away for quite some time.
Right. Well, as long as Pluto is staying in Capricorn, we've got a couple more years of that. Uranus in Taurus, we know it's shaking. These are earthquaking times, right? Everything's shaking on all levels. The physical, the mental, the emotional. But I mean, that's how you get rid of stuff. Like, you got to shake that shit out, right? You got to shake it. Right.
And I do want to mention one thing. One of my mentors mentioned about Ceres moving into Aquarius. I do not want anybody to go, oh my God. But I think basic looking after yourself is really important, because Ceres is probably going to see an uptick in this coronavirus thing that's going around. The shift into Aquarius. Usually the shift into a sign brings this kind of rush of energy, and it's airborne. So Aquarius is an air sign. So all I'm bringing it up for is that, maybe take more care of yourself, a lot more, hand washing, just be aware of who you're hanging around with and things, but don't go into fear, because most healthy people are recovering from the virus anyway. So.
Right. And just to put this in perspective, every time there's a revolutionary change, there is always disease.
Yeah.
And that's
of all kinds.
All kinds, right? And that's just par for the course, because you have to remember, that's part of Aquarius is things coming in, same as Uranus and Taurus, physical things coming in. But it's also, there's control. Like, the people at the top don't want to let go of control, and and this comes out in all different ways. But the more we connect to our heart, the more we're in spiritual health and physical health, the less likely we're going to be swept off with it, right? So it's like any of these things doesn't care about how much money you have, but when you have a good constitution, right, you in integrity, you're less likely to be impacted by it. And that's just the way it is, because you can just look back in history. There were diseases and people would go in and help and nothing happened to them, right?
Exactly.
And some people who were like overcautious, they died anyway. So it's just
I'm not asking for caution. I just think it.
Right, caution.
Yeah, it's just, and this series is about, you know, the food cycle. And if we think about how this coronavirus kind of, or how they think it started, although some people have got these major conspiracy theories, but it's probably from the treatment of the food cycle that it's come. So we're being asked to look at that. So we're just being dis-ease itself always has a lesson in it. What do we need to learn from?
And maybe the thieves, you know, they have the thing called thieves oil.
Yeah,
it's supposed to be good for. I mean, that's what they use.
There's all kinds of natural.
Well, you know where it comes from, the story of the thieves, or why they call it the thieves oil?
No.
Because they would go and the thieves would go and steal stuff off the dead bodies, and they would put this oil in them to protect them so they didn't get sick. You know, there's different things. I'm not saying that it would work, but it doesn't hurt to check it out. And
I've got some flu-y symptoms myself today, and I'm on the apple cider vinegar and the garlic and
ginger and like all those things. Like, right? Why not try it? But it's just like, have a sense of humor and a sense of lightness about all of this. Because if you believe that your soul is here on a journey, and that if it's your time, it's your time. I mean, I know it's painful when people we love die, or when we think we're coming to the end of our life. But I think putting so much emphasis to the idea that I don't want to die, or I don't want other people to die, stops you from living. You know, it's just
I agree.
You know,
yeah.
Understand.
In one of my first jobs, I used to work with this guy, and I used to get along with him. He was an older guy, and he used to sit there regularly, and he'd suddenly go, "There's one sure thing in life, death." He used to say it all the time, but it always stuck with me because he's right. There's one sure thing in life. We're all going to die.
And every day we're dying in some way. As we let go of old ideas, we're dying. There isn't just one way of dying. It's like we're hanging on to things that we don't need. And that's what happens a lot of times. People work their butts off and they say, I'll relax and enjoy myself when I retire. And then when they retire, they have bad health. And then they die and they don't get to go and do the things they said they would. And that's because they put their living on hold.
Yeah.
When you get to this place, when you're inspired to live from a place of love, and you're not so worried about what it's going to get you.
Yeah.
You know, your life is full and you don't have any regrets when you die.
Is that live like you're dying? That's the expression.
Right. I just posted a quote because I heard Trevor Noah saying that love what you have and you will have what you love.
I like that. I like Trevor.
I do. I do. My countryman, he's amazing. But
he's a good guy.
He's a good guy. And that's very true. Like, love what you have. Just enjoy this, right? And enjoy the fact that you can let go of some of this old shit. Because we have to look at this Pluto, Saturn, the Jupiter thing, all of that. You know, it's so fascinating. The Pluto, Saturn and Jupiter, right? With this idea. And there's Jupiter at 6, Saturn at 7, at 25 and 15. So again, we have the numbers, the awakening of through love, right? This idea of changing ourselves through love, through, you know, the discipline of love.
And there's Juno as well up there in Libra, actually aspecting the full moon. And she's at a 3 as well. But Juno, I've often said, in an individual chart, I think she has a lot to do with the marriage, who you want to be married to. But in a mundane chart like this, which is what the full moon chart is, much more to do with the rights of women, the oppressed, the abused. And here she is in Libra, the sign of peace, harmony, balance, and aspecting this new moon. So that's about loving the other as well. So yeah, and
Right.
that's 3 again. Yeah.
Right. The 3 again. That love of self, love yourself, and that love spreads everywhere, as we've said. But I also think the understanding of this whole Jupiter, Pluto, Saturn, understanding this energy, that Saturn is stripping you of your old illusions in a way.
Mm.
And the things that you may consider hard, like it isn't always hard. It's about using your time, your resources in a different way. And Pluto, definitely the bringer of death, and that's right. And that's
all kinds again. Yeah.
right. And the cycle series with this idea of, it's the replenishment of land. When you use land and it loses all its nourishment, then it has to, lie fallow. And this is what this is all about. It's coming back to the truth, to the basic truth. And of course, Jupiter expands. What is it expanding right now, right? When it's working with Saturn, which is restricting. Expanding and restricting is helping you kind of redefine the space, the world you want to live in, which is so interesting. I mean, here we're being given this opportunity to redefine how we live and focus on what it is we want, right? Step by step.
So I do think we should read the symbols, because we have a question too, unless there's anything other that you wanted to say pressing about the astrology.
No, I think we've covered a lot of what there is to say. I mean, there's a lot more, but
there always is. We could go on forever. So I'm going to read the Chandra symbol first this time.
Go for it.
A holly bush covered with berries. It is in the snow. The ornamental display and deep underpinnings. Within the karmic theatre, you perform to the hilt as your best self and your worst self grappling with each other in extreme mutual polarization. The witnessing intelligence is far removed from this dramatization and registering every nuance from beyond. Within the precincts of the drama, there is also a compulsion to go against form and show the other side, against what is expected or assumed. Yet, as the observer beholds this very compulsion, it is minor and trivial, only a personality quirk. The inward wisdom drives you, the karmic performer, to outdo yourself in switching and reversing polarities. But ultimately, you are not amused and archly await steps towards maturity and the dawning of ability to see through yourself on the spot, which is a very difficult and advanced state, and the only one that inspires and urges onward this quixotic combination of outward entrapment and inward fair witnessing with the utmost dispassion. Wow, that's really dense. It's like, but I think it goes a lot to what we've talked about letting go of that ego of feeling different, yet being able to step back and maybe see it. There's a lot there. So.
Right, it's very dense and rich, something to think about, but it does really speak to what we talked about.
It does.
It's making choices around who you want to be, how you want to live. You can choose to live divided, or you can choose to live connected. And what does that take, right? And using your courage to live a different life, right? That's what this is all about. Live through the heart.
I did love the dawning ability to see through yourself on the spot. it's learning to see where you're coming from, this egoic place, and it's not easy, but that's the Aquarian ability to step back and above, to kind of witness it, and then you can change it. Awareness comes.
Right, and very much that Artemis kind of thing as well, is this idea. She came out of the head, right, the head of her father, Zeus. Is this idea of being that higher knowing. But I also think having the compassion. When you have the compassion, when you see yourself as you are, naked and kind of the illusions are gone, just having that compassion, that love, like it's okay to be that kind of springboards you into, well, what can I do? How can I play with all of my gifts and all this stuff that's in the world? How can I make something different? How can I get together with other people and collaborate and create? It just gives you so much excitement and joy to know there's so much, anything is possible, and what are you choosing, right? So instead of hiding behind that whole thing about who you've been.
All right, let's have the Sabian symbol.
The Sabian symbol at 21 degrees, which is, 21 is all about truth. The truth will set you free. Free.
This symbol makes me laugh. I'll let
you. All right, so this is hilarious. Okay. Intoxicated chickens dizzily flap their wings trying to fly.
In case you didn't get that, it's intoxicated chickens dizzily flap their wings trying to fly. You can read.
The often negative and at times ludicrous, thank you, ludicrous first experience with spiritual teachings. So in Near Eastern symbolism, wine, intoxication, and vineyards always refer to ecstatic experience and to the contact with mystical or occult schools. Chickens here suggest that we are dealing with human beings who are the standardized products of their culture and more or less undifferentiated specimens of social norm. Brought accidentally or prematurely to a mystical or occult experiences, they usually react to them in a highly confused and dizzy manner.
Oh dear. Jen's had the laughing gas.
What reacts in them is the ego, and the ego can never fly. That is, the experience spiritually transcendently realities in an effectual manner. So you can't effectually transcend with your ego.
Effectual, that is, by the way.
Yeah, effectual, right.
Yeah, just
the first symbol. Okay, so that is the food may be intoxicating, consciousness expanding, but the inner openings lack depth and constructiveness, whether or not they produce what appears to be wonderful feelings. So you can talk about the danger of premature expansion of consciousness.
That speaks to me of some of this talk of awakening and I'm awakened or enlightened.
Right.
And that's this kind of stuff, it's a lot of it lacks depth.
Yes, I think that's really true. Like, we have to not get ahead of ourselves on our journey, right? That's egoic, to start talking about all these things and naming them and telling people we're there and somebody else isn't. We don't even know what it is. So
exactly.
let's let's flap our wings and enjoy it. And as we do it and become more conscious of the love expression, we'll settle down. We won't feel so dizzy, right? I think it's so interesting because we're in such a fascinating time. Like, I can look at myself and say, yeah, I've been on this journey for 10 years. But you know what? I'm still learning things and I'm still going through. I went to an event on Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing with sound thing. And then the next day I was like completely useless. Because I was, cycling up.
Yes.
And I was just like, you're like, oh, I'm on top of the world. And then you're like, oh shit, I'm on the bottom of the world, right?
You have that post-event crash.
Right. And then I felt great the next day, but still, right? It's like we don't really know what's going to happen. So to act like we're like, oh, I'm full of it, I know everything, that's total bullshit. And you're going to miss things while you're thinking how great you are, right?
And it's putting yourself above others as well again. So you're losing that heart connection. So
Right. And that whole polarity between head and heart, if we're going to be creating things, we want to invent things, remembering our human connection, remembering the heart, remembering the love, right? We don't want to just invent things for the sake of invention. We want them to be heart-based.
So we're ready for the question because we're at the hour. So let's go on to that. So this is from Rihanna from Hawaii. And she says her love and I are to be wed on February the 20th, 2020. Would you speak to the numerology and astrology of this day? So, well, Jen said quite a lot about the 2s and the 20s already. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Jen?
Right. So let me just think. So I think it's fascinating that, this 2020, well, 2020, 20 on 2020, 2020, there's all those 4s, and that's how many 4s? I mean, 2s. It's
1, 2, 3, 4.
4 2s, so that's 8.
Yes.
So what's so powerful about this is it's wonderful that you've chosen this, because of course 2 is not just about an awakening, it's about the connection, it's about the community, all of us in the 21st century with the 20 coming together to see each other in a different way, to connect with humility and understanding and willingness to work together and attend to the details that are so important. It's about relationships. So it's wonderful to get married on this date. What I love is that it speaks to the 2, 4, and 8, which is about making it real in this world. Like we have all these ideas that we have thought about and idealized all this time. But we want to bring those ideas into our heart. And this is how we do it through the 2, 4, 8. We create a world that we enjoy living in, that we're treating each other with kindness, that we're allowing our intuition to guide us, that we're taking a rest when we need to, that we're not dismissing that feminine aspect of being. So that's really so beautiful. And the 2 and the 4 and the 8 allow us to ascend to a different kind of leadership, to see the big picture and to do all the actions of the smaller picture to build a new world. So yeah.
Jen, I'm just going to share the chart for those that are on video so Jen can see it too. It's this is a real look at it. My cat was just sticking her tail in front of me.
It must be important if a cat comes by.
I've been very needy lately. So the couple of things that jump out at me really with this is there's a lot of 2s in this chart as well. Chiron and Lilith are both at 2 degrees together, again with that healing. Again, swap the places again. So have I got the right date, February the 2nd, or is it February the 20th?
No,
I've got the wrong date. Sorry.
But it's interesting that we have, because this month we're having a lot of 2 days, right? And 4s, 2 4s and 8s being activated. So it's very.
I thought there was a big trine, Mars trine Uranus, from Capricorn to Taurus. That's an exact trine at that 3 again that Jen talked about. So you can go, we don't have to repeat all the numbers over again. And Chiron's at 3 by then. So there's a lot of 3s in the astrological chart for the day. But I think that's a lovely trine actually for a relationship. It's got this kind of drive to both help each other to really kind of innovate in the relationship and such like. It's got a lot of healing too. Anything else jump at me astrologically? Well, we are in Pisces season, so you've got that lovely Pisces higher love kind of energy for the day. So it's a really nice chart, to be honest. I don't see there's not many challenging aspects, I don't think. Nope. Do you see anything, Jen, that jumps out at you?
No, I think the thing that it is fascinating that we have all those threes, right? The sun is at 1, and then the moon and the sun are both at 1, of course, so that's great. New beginnings, and then the threes are fascinating because that's about the self-expression, right? Being yourself in a relationship, being individuated, as opposed to codependent, or what they call interdependent. So that's what I see.
Right, of the minds kind of relationship, yeah.
Right, being able to communicate and share a relationship and be who you each are.
And there's a nice balance of elements, I think, in the apart from, there's not much air, but then we have there's the Aquarius, of course.
Right.
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's
a good day to get married or to
nice chart, nice numbers. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great time. This twos are about connecting us. So it's a great time to, whether you're getting married, you're wanting to improve your relationships with people. We can see it's playing out in the world. Those leaders that are choosing to take the inclusive idea are doing the right thing, because this is what the twos are asking for, to balance. You balance by allowing each side to have their say, letting them create their own muddle, right? You don't need to do it. They will create their own muddle because they're out of integrity. When you're looking at the twos, it's all about creating that balance of relationships.
So have a wonderful day, Rihanna.
Yes.
You'll have time to listen to this before you get married, and what a lovely place to live and get married. So, okay, so Jen, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you? And let me just quickly remind everybody that if you want to send your question in, it's to weirdlymagicalpodcast@gmail.com, and that we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/weirdlymagical. I think my cat's getting hungry, so tell everybody. She's
your cat Luna. Well, she's all about the full moon, right?
Yes, she is,
and that's why she's like, "This is my moon."
Yes.
So yes, so people can find me on my website, jendushen.com. I also have a free group on Facebook, We Belong Here. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook, Jen Dushen. Google my name. My cards are available on my website. I have a group that's also on my website if you're interested in joining a monthly group. And I am offering Akashic. I teach Akashic classes, people how to read the Akashic records. So I do have a class coming up, and that's on my website, online and in person in San Mateo. And I have, well, this Sunday I'm actually doing a free meditation, Akashic meditation. So I'll have that somewhere, maybe on my website, but somewhere it'll be. If you join my newsletter on my website, then you'll be notified when I do events, as well as get my insights. And I have a YouTube channel as well, which I'd like more followers, because I do weekly videos on from the cards and what's happening and other stuff.
YouTube channel called your name? Is that your name?
Yeah, Jen Dushen, I think.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, well, I'm Louise Eddington, and my website is louiseeddington.com. My business is now called Cosmic Owl Astrology, hence the owl. And but I'm gradually getting everything shifted over to that. I have a Facebook page, Cosmic Owl Astrology /Louise Eddington. I have a free Facebook group called the Planetary Magic Cafe. I'm offering a free class coming up, the Mercury retrograde class. I will put a link with this, but you can find it on my Facebook page or in the group as well. And anything else? Oh yes, my YouTube channel, Cosmic Owl Astrology. I'm also looking for more subscribers and things, because YouTube's algorithms are such that the more subscribers and viewers you have, the more you get.
Right.
So,
one of those weird things.
and so on Instagram too, Louise Eddington. But Google my name, you find me everywhere. And I hope you'll join me on the Mercury retrograde class. I've decided that there's too much fear around Mercury retrograde, and I aim to change that. So that's what the class is about. And I think that's it from us. I don't think there's anything else for this episode.
No, but we love your reviews. If you enjoy our podcast, we'd love your reviews.
We have some great reviews, so thank you to those that have left them already. iTunes, even if you don't use iTunes to listen to podcasts, you can go online and leave reviews on iTunes, and that's where the reviews show up. So please leave us one. All right. Okay, so that's goodbye from Lou.
Happy February.
Yes.
And goodbye. Yes. And goodbye from Jen.
But
yes. Oh, well, we'll
be back one more time before
right.
then. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye from Lou.
Goodbye from Jen.